Alucard here. So I don't know that it's every day that a Dungeons & Dragons campaign session begins with 4 members of the group requiring that the 5th member of the party subject herself to a zone of truth so that they can interrogate her, basically. You see, she had done some things in the previous session that made the other players and their characters not trust her, basically. I think they suspected that she had ulterior motives in being in the party. Perhaps the DM had put her there as a plant to do something nefarious. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I would never give a character ulterior motives for being in the group to somehow introduce drama and conflict. I mean, that sort of thing, drama and conflict and, conflict resolution and all of this stuff, it has no place in D&D. Why would somebody ever think of such a thing? Anyway, she has to go into a zone of truth and basically say to the heroes that I don't plan to do you any harm, blah 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 blah. And so she passes the minimum requirements to travel with the group, so to speak. So Squeaky's down here bothering the crap out of me. I think he wants to be on YouTube again. So I have this thing going on where I'll be recording a video and my cats see me talking to this camera and they're like, no, we need attention. And so they'll come up and bother me. This is Squeaky. He's down here going crazy, rubbing against stuff. Or maybe he just is like, my human is going crazy. And he's like, I need to go find out what's going on. He's going crazy. He's talking to himself. He's staring at the wall, talking to himself. This is wrong. Okay, so the next order of business is Lear needs to go talk to Cora Sorrell over in New Lombard College. So there's something going on with Lear's mother. She is missing. There was some problem with undead up north in Lylan, a town north of Waterdeep. And the heroes had, in the last session, the heroes at the very end of it received, as a nice cliffhanger, they received a letter basically telling Lear, you need to go talk to Cora right now. Your mother is missing. There are undead. It's horrible. And stuff like that. And so they're going to talk to her to find out what in the world is going on. And this is something I did. I presented a while back, I presented the Hand of Light group with 2 quest options. They had an option to go deal with something going on with Lear's mother up in Leyland, and they had an option to, what was it? I believe their gnomes had been kidnapped by Katso, and they had to go. This was the whole last thing, finding Katso episode adventure that we did. And they chose to go find Katso, and so the whole thing with Lear's mother and Lylan and the undead, that storyline progressed while they were dealing with Katso, and now, a week or 2 later, now things have gotten worse, and Lear's mother got captured. And so Lear's mother was a bard traveling with a band up north near that city, and everybody got captured by undead except for one member of her traveling group, and that man had come asking, they had asked the heroes to come help them before, and the heroes didn't do it. They decided to go find their gnomes and deal with Katso, and so now they got to deal with a storyline that is much more complicated and possibly beyond repair. So they get to New Lombard College. They're trying to find Cora Sorrell, and she is over in the recreational hall, which is called Modesty Hall, and she is supervising some new students that they are told are completely inept and causing trouble in so much that they have the money to train as bards, but they don't appear to have any musical talent or other skills whatsoever. And so they arrive in Modesty Hall, and I describe these bards or these students rather, just playing horrible, horrible music, just a cacophony of noise. Their instructor is just exasperated, doesn't know what to do, and I was totally just making this stuff up on the spot, had just whatever, I'm like, oh, this is funny, whatever. And then Lear's player is like, I cast Enhance Ability on the 3 students, and I'm like, what does that do? Apparently it gives them advantage on ability checks that they make for the next hour. And so I describe them as suddenly their lute and their harp, the music that comes from them is amazing. It changes 180 degrees. And then the head instructor begins calling out to the entire, recreational hall that they have child prodigies on hand and all this type of stuff. And it was a cool little role-playing moment. So one of those things that you didn't plan for, you didn't even think of. Like I said, I made this crap up on the spot, and then one player has an interesting idea and you just roll with it, and it turns out to be I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a really interesting thing that happened, that was never planned for. You never thought of doing it. It just kind of happened. It just happened. And I keep saying the same thing, but it was cool. I liked it, enjoyed it. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. And if you don't like that, that's too bad. This is my video and my channel. Yeah, mine. So anyway, they speak with Korra, and Korra takes her back to her offices and stuff, and she gives Lear an upbraiding about not having come earlier, not having dealt with this problem when he should have, and she ends up mentioning how his dues are behind at the Bard's College, and Lear, the player, the character, mentions how, geez, I thought I was, blah, 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 and I ended up getting, like, reprimanded and stuff, and so it was cool. Anyway, I like doing that. And then they meet up with another dude, Evard, who is the bard that traveled in their band. They talk to him for a little bit. They get some information. Basically, undead. So just south of Lyland is a swamp known as the Mere of Undead. And undead came out of this swamp, attacked Leland, and killed like the men and the fighters that were actually fighting, but they took as captives women and children and non-combatants and took them back into the swamp. And this is very odd for undead. Undead don't do this. Undead are mindless aberrations. They kill things. This is odd. And the players, the heroes, draw this conclusion. And Evard tells them that, their traveling band was trying to get these people back from the undead. They were investigating things, and they were taken captive as well. And Lear's mother, Nicolette, is captive, possibly dead. And this is what the information the heroes have, and now they need to go north and find out what's going on, and hopefully find Lear's mother and rescue her. So I just assumed as a DM that they were probably going to, just travel by land, get some horses and stuff like that, but the players are like, well, let's get a ship, let's find a ship that could take us north. And that was a really good idea. And so we looked up ships and stuff, and we got some, speeds and stuff like that. And one of the characters is a former pirate. This is the guy that if you watch the sessions and stuff, he sometimes is like, pirate energy and stuff. So anyway, he goes to the docks, and there's this little cool scene where he's talking to a captain, and we're both doing our best, our Irish or Scottish voices, and we're doing the ship stuff. I don't know, whatever. That's probably a little bit of Russian or something that came through there. But anyway, we do this little thing, and he ends up getting free passage because it's one of his background traits. And the only thing is that the ship doesn't actually sail for 4 or 5 days, and they can, if they get horses, they can travel to Lyland by then, which is reasonable. Ships don't take off every day necessarily, right? They come into port, they got to unload things, they got to get their new stuff, and then they take off and stuff. So it's reasonable. It's not like that was forcing them to go by land. I mean, I had stuff planned for them to go by land, but as they were, this is the thing, as they were talking about going by ship, they were talking about, should we go by ship? And the only thing I was thinking about in my mind was, I have something planned for them on their journey. How can I adjust that so that when they go by ship, I can still have that happen? And so in the space of the 5 minutes that they were discussing how they were going to travel, I had figured out how I could adjust what was going to happen so that it could happen on a ship while they were going by water, and which is part of DMing, right? Like when you're and this is interesting. So when the players are discussing their plans, right, the DM needs to be thinking, right? How can if you had something planned, some sort of little story point you were going to hit on that's important to progress things, if they deviate a little bit, well, okay, so that's fine. You guys can go ahead and go over there and do that. And the little thing I had planned, well, that's still going to happen. I'm just going to change the circumstance a little bit. I'm going to put it over here. Instead of being on land while you travel, it's going to be on a ship over here. If it's an important story point and you're progressing a storyline, it's not that their choices matter, but it's also the illusion of choice that's important. As long as the players feel like they have agency and choice, and it appears that way, then they do have, as far as they're concerned, they do have agency and choice. Somebody's probably going to yell at me, Railroader, horrible, blah. Well, all I can say is that I've been running my games with pretty much the same groups and the same people for over a year and a half. Each group every other week, and the players still come back. They appear to have fun and they enjoy it. So if I'm a railroader, then, well, they must like being railroaded. Or maybe it's not. Anyway, they decide to go by land anyway, and they get horses and they go by land. Yeah, so it was fine. Either way, it would have been fine. I could have done my little encounter either way. So as they were traveling, I was having them roll d12s, and I didn't tell them why they were rolling d12s. I don't think they some of them probably suspected why they were rolling d12s, but I didn't tell them. I just said, okay, you roll a d12, roll a d12. What I was checking for was random encounters, and here's the thing. I knew there was going to be an encounter. I had planned an encounter. I was presenting this illusion of randomness, the illusion of we're rolling d12s, it's probably for random encounters, and there's some special number that if we hit it, there's going to be an encounter, and every half a day of travel, I was having them roll it, and then on the third day, I was like, aha! You see a speck in the distance over toward the mountains approaching you, flying through the air. It is something very large that is small because it's in the distance. And I had rolled 2d12s, hidden the numbers, and the illusion was if you roll the number that I'm looking for, that you're going to have a random encounter. And so this planned encounter, I shrouded it and disguised it as a random encounter. I don't know if my players caught on to that or not. I really don't care. I liked doing it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. If I fooled one of them, I won. Anyway, it was a horned devil. It came, flew above them, and it delivered a message to them. It told them that Jathar wanted to tell them, thank you. You see, some time ago, a couple bone devils attacked the heroes while they were in an inn because Jathar, this mysterious person who follows Mephistopheles, the ruler of the 8th level of the 9 hells, was trying to get a map of Evermeet from the heroes, and the heroes told him, look, we don't have the map. That was Katso. He had the map, and we don't have it. We don't know where he is. Jathar told them, find the map, bring the map to me, or else. And some bone devils attacked them, and they didn't have any trouble with that. But one thing that did slip out was they told Jathar that a noble family called the Moonstars knew something about the map and the location of the map or something like that. And so it's interesting, in that session when the heroes let it slip about the Moonstars, I was role-playing Jathar. Inwardly at least, probably outwardly, I was smiling because they just gave Jathar a piece of information that I could use to possibly complicate their lives in the future. And so this horned devil that was flying toward the mountains toward them tells them thank you. Jathar says thank you. This tip you gave him about the Moonstars is turning out to be really lucrative. And that's all they know. I didn't tell them anything else. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening with Jathar or the Moonstars. They're going to have to find that out later, after they get in with Lyr's mother. And of course, things with that plot line will continue to progress while they're goofing around up north. So the horned devil holds out his hands. He has 2 gems in them. He says, these are your gifts. He throws them down to the ground. They explode and open up magical portals. And looking through the portals, they can see a frigid, icy landscape, mountains, and I describe frigid wind blowing through the portals, and monsters begin stepping through the portals. I describe these as orcish type things with like white skin and armor that looks like it's made out of ice or crystallized metal or something, stepping through, and a combat kicks off. These are some version of fiendish orcs or something like that from Cania, the 8th level of the 9 hells, which is a icy, frigid landscape. And so these portals opened up, monsters came out, and they had a battle, and they had the Horned Devil up there, and it was pretty cool. The Horned Devil was he was flinging fireballs down at them, basically, doing only one target. It wasn't like an area effect thing, but he was doing a good amount of damage, and the heroes had no way of getting up at him. The wizard didn't have fly memorized. Finally, they'd killed all the orcs. That didn't turn out to be too big of a problem for them, but this Horned Devil was up there flinging fire at them, and they did not have a solution for that. He was 150 feet above. A lot of their spells didn't reach that far. Most of the players are melee types. They're not very good at ranged combat, but the solution they came up with was the wizard polymorphed himself into a giant eagle. The paladin had hopped on his back, and they were going to fly up and attack the Horned Devil, which I thought was a pretty good solution. That was pretty cool. And then the bard is like, wait a second, Hypnotic Pattern has a 120-foot range, and it's a 30-foot cube, so that's 150 feet. Will that hit the Horned Devil? And I was like, yeah, sure, that'll hit him. And so he casts it, and of course I get to roll with advantage on my save, but I still fail. His DC is like 17, which is like super, in my experience, a DC 17 is hard to beat, especially if it's not like your favored save or something. And so the Horned Devil fails, and here's the thing, the Lyr the Bard was directly below the Horned Devil when he cast this spell, and so what Hypnotic Pattern incapacitates you, and you plummet to the ground if you're flying. He lands right on Lyr. It does, he took like 15d6 falling damage, the Horned Devil did, and then Lear, I said, well, you know what, he fell on top of you, so you took half that damage. And so, Lear gets piled on top of, and he's like stuck below this devil. And so, I mean, that was pretty cool. That was like a little cinematic moment, and we were laughing about it. It's like, well, you cast it on him when he was directly above you, and he fell. Okay, it was cool. At that point, though, one of the characters like grapples the Horned Devil, I believe, so that he's prone and held down and he can't get up. And then the heroes just start beating on him, and he goes down really fast. And so what appeared, I mean, the wizard had mentioned before in that battle, he's like, well, we're gonna die because we can't get at this guy, and he's destroying us. He was doing lots of damage, and it's amazing how you can have a moment where you're like, oh crap, we're going to lose. And then all of a sudden the players have a really good idea that totally shifts the tide of combat. And then it's a cakewalk. It's not a problem at all. And that happens a lot, I find. They'll get discouraged, not necessarily this group, but just in general. They'll be like, this sucks, we can't win. And then, okay, yeah, that was easy. So the heroes arrive in Leyland, and they find that half of the small mining town is in complete ruins. There are some mounted soldiers riding around, the Lances of Leyland, and they tell them to go speak with their captain. Lance Captain Herman Shagavan is his name, and they go speak with him, and he tells them that the villagers, or the townsmen, all believe, are quite positive in fact, that a certain necromancer in the town is responsible for the undead invading them and attacking and carrying off people. This necromancer's name is Gabriel, and he apparently claims to be a priest of Ugma, the god of knowledge, but he is well known for experimenting with cadavers of people and other animals, and so, of course, he's a necromancer, and people always saw him weirdly, very suspicious. They were very suspicious of him the whole time, and now, of course, when undead attack the town, it must be him. And after the attack, the soldiers tried to apprehend Gabriel, but he ran off into the swamp to the south, where the undead had come from. And so the captain tells the heroes that he is responsible, he is the one, they should find him, obviously, and bring him back for justice, in addition to stopping the undead, of course. For some reason, the heroes were suspicious of this. They were questioning whether it was really Gabriel or not. And so they go to his house and they do some investigations and they find some stuff, normal stuff that you would expect from a priest of Ugma. And they don't know that he was actually the one that did it or not. So the heroes buy a boat and they go down into the Mirror of Dead Men and they start going around looking for undead, looking for clues, looking for something. I don't know. They were just kind of like rowing aimlessly through the swamp. And until Lear comes, he has I think he had a scroll of Speak with Animals or something like that. And he uses it and he speaks with like a crow that's nearby. And there's this little exchange where they're having kind of like almost a nonsensical, childish conversation. And he gets the crow to basically lead them to other people that he had seen recently that looked like them, other humans supposedly. And the crow leads them through the swamp, and they come to a man that is up in the tree with like a club, and there are undead monsters, ghasts, at the bottom of this tree trying to get at this guy, and the guy is like clubbing at them, trying to keep them down. The heroes roll in, they attack the ghasts. The ghasts turn out to be very little challenge for them. They destroy them quite easily. This man turns out to be Gabriel himself, and Gabriel tells them that he's innocent. He didn't do it. He had nothing to do with it. He is here in the swamp trying to clear his name, in fact, because he is a priest of Ugma. He had nothing to do with all this stuff. And he tells them that he is a quite competent fighter, and that he would be happy to accompany them and help them to solve this problem. And this is where the second zone of truth comes in. They make Gabriel submit to a zone of truth, and they ask him. So I think my players are catching on to me as a DM possibly, and how I like to mislead them and tell them stuff that's not true. And so now, I mean, well, the first zone of truth wasn't with me; it was with a player. But now they're subjecting me to a zone of truth, as though I would lie to them. Why would I deceive my players? That would not be nice. So it comes out that Gabriel is a horrible fighter. He knows nothing about it. But he is a priest of Ugma. He is not a necromancer, and he absolutely had nothing to do with it. And so the heroes are satisfied. And Gabriel tells them, he's like, look, there are some ruins. They're from a wizard called Iniarv or something like that. The ruins of his tower. And this is where I believe the source of the undead problem is. I just don't know how to get there. And the heroes know where that is. The heroes passed it on their way up to Leyland. And this is where interesting stuff happens, because the NPC gave them a lead, said, I believe this is where the problem is, and all of the players discussed it, and they're like, no, we don't think that tower has anything to do with it. Let's not go there. Let's just wander through the swamp. And so this is where the session ended, with the players deciding that we're just going to row our boat through the swamp and hope we find the undead. And guess what? They're gonna find undead. This swamp is full of undead. Next session should be fun. So hey, I'm a professional writer. That's what I do, my day job, my night job. I'm like a DM and stuff like that. And one of the things that I do is I publish Dungeons and Dragons adventures that I create and run with my groups. And I have one that's coming out, like, actually probably when this video is posted, it's going to be out there. It's on DriveThruRPG. It's called Prisoners of the Drow. It's this Hand of Light group is the one that playtested it with me. It included a different one. One of the players wasn't here, or was a different player at the time, but basically the same group playtested it with me. And so it's over there. You can go grab it. It's a pay what you want, so if you don't want to pay for it, that's fine. I mean, that's why it's pay what you want. If you want to throw me a buck or two, that's cool too. Hey, yeah, so that's it. So until next time, let's play D&D.